Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix. We're the show that watches every horror movie on Netflix from A to Z, and we talk about all of them.
And we argue. Sometimes.
Sometimes, sure.
Usually.
As always.
You love the arguing, Steve.
Yeah,
I do. Well, that used to be a staple.
It
used to be a staple of the intro, and Chris always forgets.
I feel like I said it once, and then it just became a thing.
It used to be, welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, discuss, review, and sometimes argue about every horror movie on Netflix. And I want to keep that alive.
Sure. I mean, if it happens, it happens, you know? But we try to love each other more than we try to argue with each other, although it's sometimes fun to get the gloves on and, you know, throw some elbows.
Oh, I come in with gloves on, and I take them off when I argue. I think that's what separates us.
Oh, you're a hockey player.
I guess so.
Perfect. Love hockey. Love you guys. And I love
you
some
too.
of the horror movies on Netflix.
I love, so far, one of them. Out of how many? Are we on 35? 6?
Well, if you're
That's true. How many viewits has Steven given out? It's got to be
Well, I think 1.
2, 1. Yeah.
I don't know, but you can go to our website, everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com. You can browse our master list, and you can see exactly how many viewits all the movies we've watched so far have received. And we're up to like 35 or 36 or 37 movies now, so we've been busy little bees.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 35 or 36 or 37 viewits that I have given out.
That's probably also true. Patrick's easy to please.
I am.
Well, we have something a little special coming up for you. You guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, so
Yes.
Halloween is coming, and with it, a brand new Halloween film from Blumhouse and
Called
director
Halloween.
David Gordon Green. I assume they're retconning a lot of things by reappropriating the original title, and we've decided to watch every Halloween movie on
Ever.
Blu-ray.
On Blu-ray.
Yes, I got the Scream Factory box set. Patrick and I have been going through chronologically along with our friend Brad, and we are up to numero 3.
And I'll be catching up at some point. You know, I'm taking my time.
Well, you've already seen the first 3 like, independently in the past.
Right.
So when we watch 4, now's the time. Here's where the rubber hits the road. And the return of Michael Myers.
Right, so we're deviating from our core mission a little bit, just for a little bit, and we're gonna bring that to you as a special episode, a bonus episode, closer to Halloween, so you can listen to us, get all caught up on what you've been missing out on in the Halloween lore, and then go see the new one.
We're going to review them all in 90 minutes. We're going to set a fucking timer every like 8 or 9 minutes. The Halloween theme is going to play, and we're going to shut the fuck up and move on to the next movie.
So there are 10 films if we include Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2.
Why would you not?
Well, I'm just saying that we're going to. I don't know why we wouldn't. Haven't even thought about that because it was always part of the plan from the beginning, Chris.
Yeah, all right.
So, we're going to watch them all. And I guess the idea is, you know, if you're listening to this show, you probably like horror movies. You're probably interested in the new Halloween. You probably haven't seen all the Halloween films. So we're going to give you a primer to get you ready before that film hits theaters.
And you probably have never heard anyone review all 10 Halloween movies in a single fucking podcast. So why not tune in?
And if it's not your thing, you can just skip that episode, and we'll be back to reviewing every damn horror movie on Netflix immediately after that.
If it's not your thing, you can go fuck yourself.
I wouldn't go that far. So this week, we spun the wheel of death last week.
And Patrick got to pick an episode, so we're actually breaking alphabetical order. So if you're new to the show, this is going to be confusing as hell. But we're doing. What'd you pick, Patrick?
Somehow I feel like they'll make it through. Anyways,
they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
So what'd you pick, and why did you pick it, Patrick?
I picked Train to Busan, which is a Korean zombie movie set on a train. And I picked it because I'd heard a lot of good things about it, a lot of critical acclaim when it came out. A very good friend of mine had been like trying to talk me into going to see it and was like, you got to see Train to Busan. You got to see Train to Busan. Maybe he's listening. Hi, Bill, if you're listening. But I had never seen it. So it was on my list of top 3, and fortunately for the listeners, Chris cut out my extremely long deliberation period while I was trying to decide whether to pick Train to Busan or one of the other.
That's pretty standard when you win the wheel, which you've done a number of times.
I always have a short list, and I always can never decide in that instant which one to pick. It's like, you know, the menu at the restaurant. I always have like 2 or 3 things where I'm like, which one should I pick?
Patrick's the kid in the high school drama movie who he's on the football team, and he gets past the football, and it's one's chance to make a play, and he just can't decide what play to make, and he gets sacked, and that's the season.
I bet that would be hilarious if I knew anything about sports.
I don't think it would be. I know a little bit, and I'm not chuckling.
Well,
over
fuck
here.
you guys. Speaking of sports, shout out to my mixed martial arts fans out there. When we talk about Korean zombie movie, we are not talking about the Korean zombie, the UFC personality. His nickname is, I forget his actual name, but he's known as the
definitely
Korean
can't help you
zombie.
there.
Oh, he's known as the Korean zombie.
Korean zombie.
Oh,
Yeah. So we're not talking about
It's
him.
not a movie about him
Does
yet.
he cameo in this film?
He might. I don't know.
Does he play? Wait, is he the deer at the beginning of the film that gets hit by the car?
Spoiler alert.
Great segue to explaining the opening of this film.
Yeah, Train to Busan. It's a Korean zombie movie about zombies, and I mean it takes place on a train, and that's really your premise. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, go watch it right now. I guess. Otherwise, you can listen to us.
Thanks for listening to every horror movie
Thank
on
you.
Netflix.
That's
I'm
our
Patrick.
show. I'm Chris.
We didn't even do introductions.
We didn't do introductions, but I'm Chris
That's
as
okay.
always. You're Steven still.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, absolutely.
And
I have not ceased to be Patrick,
he's still Patrick. So
for better or worse.
I gotta say, so zombie movies are not my thing. They're not my cup of tea.
Mine either.
I don't give a fuck.
With a few rare exceptions.
What are the exceptions in your mind?
I mean, it sounds so obvious at this point, but Dawn of the Dead, not the Zack Snyder film, stone cold classic.
Is
A
there
movie-
another Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah, actually, before Zack Snyder made that movie about zombies that featured lots of elevator music.
Are there directors other than Zack Snyder?
This might shock you, but there's a fellow from Pittsburgh named George A. Romero
Huh.
who made a living off of zombie films.
Wow.
A living off of the dead, you
Good
might
for
say.
him.
Did he make a movie called Dawn of the Dead, though? Because they have a lot of similar titles. I thought Dawn of the Dead was exclusively Zack Snyder's original work.
All right,
Oh,
this
fuck
joke is not funny.
Chris is not joking.
I'm not joking.
Wait, what? Are
Chris
you
is
kidding
dead
me?
serious.
I'm serious.
He's dead as a zombie.
I know that there were a lot
serious.
of. I know there was Day of the Dead, Blank of the Dead, Blank of the Dead. I didn't know there were two Dawn of the Dead.
Oh,
Chris-
yeah.
Steve is about to kill you and then quit.
well,
I'm about to rage quit this
zombie movies
podcast.
are not my thing.
No, they're not. So I will say, you should definitely check out. So there's Night of the Living Dead,
Of course.
of course. Following that, in the mid '70s, was Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's follow-up. After he made a few other films in different genres,
Chris, you've probably at least seen the iconic image from Dawn of the Dead. There's zombies in a shopping mall with their hands pressed up against the glass of a department store window.
Okay.
You probably seen
All right, so
that
that's from the
somewhere.
original Dawn
the
of
original.
the
It
Dead.
takes place in a
Yeah.
mall.
Okay.
It's an allegory for consumerism, but more than that, it's just a great zombie movie.
Okay.
Before that was a thing. I mean, Romero basically invented the modern zombie. And then he made Day of the Dead, which is not so great, but has a couple of chilling scenes. And beyond that, I loved 28 Days Later when it came out. Because it's just a very beautifully shot film, some great music. Other than that, I don't really see the appeal in zombies. I mean, we're living in a world where you can go to your local bookstore and buy, the zombie apocalypse survival guide.
Right.
I
It's become a trend.
I get the fascination. If you're younger, it's kind of fun to imagine the world going to hell and having to sort of, save yourself and find a compound to hide out.
I mean, there's lots of people out there who aren't 7 years old who think that's important.
Sure.
They're prepping. They're buying canned goods.
A zombie movie has never really scared me, though. I've seen quite a few zombie movies, but I've never really found it scary in the way that I do a lot of other genres. I don't understand what the appeal there is as a horror genre or
There's
something that's
something-
supposed to be frightening.
When it's done well, for me, and I thought about this a lot while watching this film, because this has been hailed as sort of not a reinvention, but a reinvigoration of the zombie genre by critics when it came out. And I was thinking about what really works in a zombie movie. To me, there is something scary and something socially relevant about seeing a human body being drained of its drive and its essence and just becoming sort of a mindless flesh-eating, hand-to-mouth monster.
That's what happens to me every Monday morning. Am I right, Chris?
You get the Sunday scaries. You
I
wake
get the
up
Sunday
Monday.
scaries.
Well, I kind of disagree with that because while that is the essence of the zombie menace, there's other movies. The Shining is a movie of something familiar, a person who becomes something different, and that's frightening for a different reason. I think zombie movies are scary in the way the apocalypse is scary because they're usually
Right.
very apocalyptic in tone and the fall of civilization and it's you versus
everyone, everything.
You know? And that, I think, is their appeal, and it's good fodder for the imagination. And that's where a lot of the dread in a zombie movie comes for me. Just to realize, that there's, where you're going to go. There's no one like you left. I know it's
not like the Terminator with like, a world full of Terminators. It's like you're being pursued by literally everyone in your species that you used to be able to relate to and trust. Like that's pretty scary.
It's just interesting to me because that basic concept, I mean, you guys are right. That's sort of the basic idea and the basic reason that it works, but and that in and of itself, when you explain it on paper, sounds scary to me and something that taps into fears I have. But a zombie movie has never really done that for me. I don't know why. I think it just still seems fairly disconnected from reality.
I totally agree that zombie movies, including Train to Busan, don't scare me. I'm never afraid watching them. I do find them often tense and suspenseful and exciting, and I think that's what they're going for.
There's a lot of fright. There's a lot of like struggles in closed quarters and chases and things like that. Like I think it's great fodder for a thriller for sure.
Yeah.
I think Dawn of the Dead scared me when I was a kid. Night of the Living Dead did, and still does if I'm in the right mood. But generally, I think it's better as a thriller. It's a chase, and that's effectively what we get here. I think with Train to Busan, on a couple of levels, it's a chase. It's a race against time, and also close quarters, trying to get to one end of this train and survive.
And I'm not a zombie movie fan, but I am a sucker for movies that take place on a confined mode of transportation.
Yes.
Be it a bus.
You know what I was reminded of while I was watching this movie?
I thought of the Commuter. I thought of Liam Neeson 10, 12, 40 times watching this movie. And I wish, I'm sure when they make the American remake of Train to Busan, which I feel like is inevitable.
According to Wikipedia, it is.
Yeah, they're going to make like Train to Sacramento or something. And it's going to have Liam Neeson in it.
Chris and I are big fans of the Neeson verse, which is basically the contained and totally narratively interconnected series of action movies that Neeson has made in the last, say, decade since Taken came out.
Yeah, or
they're all the
yeah.
same movie.
They're all the same movie.
We've
the same
seen
character.
them all.
We've seen them all.
We saw
We
The
love them
Commuter
all.
in the theater. We love pretty much all of them. And I think we just need to take a very brief moment. Was Train to Busan better or worse than The Commuter? Or at the very least, did it make better or worse use of the sort of bottle episode kind of closed environment of thriller on a train than The Commuter?
That's a very good question, and probably a question that has no interest to anyone other than me. But I think it made better use of the Train to Busan.
I agree.
Commuter was good, but like the actual train didn't seem to matter. It was just kind of a confined group of people.
Train to Busan does make the odd choice of briefly getting outside the train in the middle of the movie. I was like, oh, we're already outside the train?
Yeah, that was pretty
I guess I may be getting ahead of myself at this point. But,
well, a little bit.
Yeah.
But so
going off the rails, Patrick.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember the main character's name in this movie?
I was thinking earlier, I'm not going to pretend to know any of them.
Yeah, it's hard because especially they all have Korean names, and we only
no disrespect,
but we only got to know them for a short period of time, and I don't think their names were said very often.
That's what I was going to say. Some of them are referred to by name rather frequently, but the main character's name is not said very often at all.
And being Korean
His
names, we
name
don't have a mental
is-
hook to kind of hang their names on to remember them by. But after a short prologue in which a farmer is entering like a quarantine zone where there's been some sort of wildlife disturbance, and he's concerned because he doesn't know if the government's gonna like burn his pigs again or something like that. This has happened before, I guess. And we see a zombie deer, whatever.
I liked that, actually.
Yeah,
I did too. I was
like a good little cold open. For
I wasn't really
movie.
excited to watch this movie at all, like another zombie movie, but I thought that was well done.
Yeah, the farmer hits a deer with his truck, and the deer, after he drives away, the deer creepily kind of like its spine contorts and it gets back up, and its eyes are white.
Pretty
Opening
decent
title.
CGI.
I liked it.
You felt like you were watching Zombies.
I did.
Little tease.
Yes, it
Little
was
tease.
indulging my fantasy at this point to see zombies, which I think will never be fulfilled.
Right.
The main character's name is... Oh, actually, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. Seok Woo. Seok -Woo.
Right. Well, we'll call
Great.
him our main character.
Yeah.
We can call him Al.
He's a like a hedge fund manager. He's a finance guy in South Korea. I think they start off in Seoul.
He's a finance bro.
Yeah, he's a finance bro. I was watching. I did a little bit of research on the train system in South Korea, and I tried to put some of the geography together. I think this movie is pretty accurate about how it shows them moving from station to station and city to
That's
city.
cool.
Which, I mean, that makes sense. Like, obviously, we
why
don't
would
know,
they make that up?
We don't know the names, but obviously, if you make train to Sacramento and they're like, oh, we're in, San Diego, and then they're in, like, Washington, D.C., and then they're, anyway. Obviously, the geography.
Well, and there's an animated prequel of this film that came out a month after this did called Seoul Station, so it makes sense if it begins in Seoul.
Oh, perfect. Right. So it starts off in Seoul. He's a finance guy, the stereotypical ruthless finance guy,
Corporate bloodsucker. He's been referred to.
He's
as
not
in reviews.
personally ruthless, but you get the sense that like his life is his business, and he's going to do what he has to do in his business.
There's a lot left to the imagination. Like there's like a hint that he's done some terrible shit. Like he refers to his employees as lemmings.
More on that later. I had to watch that twice, but I think I understand what that was all about. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
Maybe in the spoiler and maybe before. But he's a finance guy, and his main problem is that he has no time for his family. His wife has left him, and he's home with his daughter, who he's kind of an absentee father towards.
And his mother, right?
And his mother is watching the daughter, like kind of as a surrogate parent, and he is just not concerned, really. He's concerned about his business, and he's overworked and content to be that way.
There's a really, really tough moment where it's her birthday, or her birthday's coming up, I think, and he brings her a gift, and it's a Nintendo Wii, and then we pan over, and she's already got one that has not left the box from Children's Day, which is apparently a holiday in South Korea.
Yeah.
Like he's so focused on his work and cares so little about his family that he bought the same gift twice.
And he's chosen that gift by asking one of his employees, "What are the kids into these days?"
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar to the beginning of Taken, basically, or Liam Neeson does the same thing.
With the bear?
With the karaoke machine he buys his daughter at the beginning of Taken.
Oh, doesn't he bring her a bear in one of the movies?
I don't know, probably. He buys her a lot of stuff.
That little girl's this little girl who plays his daughter is great throughout, but especially one of her greatest moments in the movie is when she opens the Wii and just the look of sort of disappointment on her face.
Why, don't you like it?
Fantastic.
And she's like, it's there. And,
great child actor.
And I watched the first 5 minutes twice, and there's a little character detail that I love that I didn't notice the first time, but once you know who the character is, he's in the parking garage, I think it's of his apartment building, where he's parking and he's talking to his ex-wife on the phone, and as he's talking to the ex-wife, he looks over and there's just a little piece of fuzz on the side of the hood of his car, and he scoots it away. He has tons of attention to detail when it comes to his fancy car. He drives an Audi or something, but no attention to detail when it comes to his family. Great characterization. And more than you would expect, and more subtle than you would expect from a zombie movie.
Common trope in these movies.
There's a lot of really nice character work in this movie.
I feel like we've seen a lot of horror movies, I have even outside of this journey, where we have sort of the absentee father who's too focused on his work to really care.
Right. Well, it's in a horror movie, it's good to have absentee parents because then they don't have to get involved in the horror and they don't have to help the kids. I'm thinking of Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff, where the parents are present, but they're pretty much detached from what's going on and not,
There's something in horror about the workaholic dad that is having trouble connecting with their teenage daughter, though.
I got a very Spielberg vibe off this movie.
Explain.
Yeah, please. I'm intrigued.
Absentee parent, children in danger, family values, and the importance of self-sacrifice and morals being reinforced through adventure/thriller induced trauma.
It's a life-affirming movie, and I'm going to get that off my chest right up front, because for the last several episodes, I feel like I've been harping against these movies that I criticize for having a lack of humanity, and I call the directors psychopaths. And make no mistake, this is a gruesome, violent movie where a lot of people get fucked up and die in, gory circumstances. But underneath it, this movie cares about people, and cares about what it's saying, and it's connected to humanity in a way that, a lot of these movies we watch aren't.
Almost too much.
I was gonna say we'll get to it, but almost too much. Yeah, there's some moments later that kind of resolve, tie up the narrative threads that I thought were a little over the top.
It lays it on pretty thick.
It lays it on thick, but it's there, and it shows that you can have your gore and your people dying, and you can also have the movie, be a positive movie.
Redemptive story that
or
says
just
something positive about
even if it's
humanity.
not redemptive, has a human element. Like,
Sure.
I wouldn't have minded even if it had a dark kind of downer thing, but it had a connection to people. Like, instead of 13 cameras where there's just like a guy with no personality chopping people
Please
up.
don't invoke that name ever again.
Fuck that.
Not until 14 cameras comes out. Embargo.
Sure.
Quiet down, Junior.
So it's her birthday, and her birthday is coming up. I don't think it's actually her birthday in that scene. And all she wants is to go see her mom in Busan. And
Because her mom's actually a good parent, presumably.
yeah, and it's really fucking sad. I mean, I actually didn't tear up, but I felt for this little girl because she's such a good performer, and I felt like, God, this must suck living with this guy and with his mom who's taking care of you, but it's, it's his mom. It's not her grandmother, really. And yeah, so he ends up conceding and deciding at the, I think his mom ends up convincing him to take her to Busan to see her mom.
Right.
And mayhem ensues almost immediately.
Mayhem ensues as they're leaving for the train station at like the crack of dawn. You're seeing emergency response, and there's been a lot of stuff going on
In the periphery.
kind of in the periphery of the story, and you're watching a zombie movie. So like, okay, I know what's going on here. Something that I liked about this movie with regards to that is that this movie assumes what zombies are and what a zombie movie is.
I did appreciate that too, actually. That was one of my notes.
But don't most of them.
No, not some of the ones
was-
I've seen lately.
There was zero explanation in this movie of what zombies are, what the zombie apocalypse is, what the rules with zombies are.
It doesn't waste any time.
No.
It's just like,
What
get
zombie
with it.
movie explains what zombies are? Name one.
Zombieland.
Well, that's a self-referential comedy.
Or I feel it's been a while, but I feel like 28 Days Later and stuff like.
Oh yeah,
Well, but
it's
even
a rage virus,
Right, the rage
There's a lot of movies
virus.
that if they don't explain it, they waste a lot of time sort of building the world and showing you like, way too many minutes of like news TV footage of things going in the background. This movie's like focused on the characters. We know because we know it's a zombie movie. There's stuff going on in the background that's going to come to affect them later, but it doesn't really draw a lot of focus away from our protagonists. And I really appreciate that. It just kind of gets to the point.
Like when someone gets bit by the zombie and turns into a zombie, they never explain that, and there's never any characters debating that, which you can argue that's a little unrealistic, that like these passengers on the train would see someone who's totally normal get bit and like...
What zombie movie explains that someone turns into a zombie after they get bit by a
I'm
zombie?
not an expert on zombie movies, but I don't watch most of them, but I feel like the ones I've seen, yeah, there's a rage virus, or they try to... They don't just assume I could be wrong.
Huh.
I
can't.
can't name a title, but I know I've seen at least a handful of movies because there's so many zombie movies, especially in the past like 10, 15 years. I know I've seen movies that like treat me like an idiot for not, and they don't have anything to offer beyond it's a zombie movie. There's not a lot of character development. So I'm with Chris. I do feel like there is some of that out there, and this movie it doesn't care. It wastes no time. It assumes these characters live in a world where they've seen zombie movies too.
I don't know about that. I mean,
They seem shocked.
You would be, right?
Of course.
It's a little unrealistic. Like, if the three of us are hanging out and a crazed maniac comes through the door and bites Steven, and then Steven's eyes glaze over and he starts acting crazy, I'm not going to like start beating his ass and strand him to die. I'm going to assume that I'm not going to know that he's a zombie, right? But this movie doesn't care about that. It's like, hey, you guys know what zombies are. This is a zombie movie. Get over it. And it just gets to the action. And that's fine.
But everybody reacts in a very natural way to seeing this shit for the first time. Like, I don't feel like the characters react in some sort of jaded way as though they already know what zombies are. Everyone is shocked to see this and reacts in a pretty natural way. I mean, I think if someone came in and was biting a chunk out of Steven's neck, and their eyes were fucking glazed over and they were contorted, we would probably do our best to beat the shit out of them.
No, but there are a lot of human moments in this where, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're fucked.
There are some small human moments in this too where it's like, yeah, they behave naturalistically, which is that like everyone has their own sort of reaction to what's going on. They all have their own priorities, their own agendas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me that like some of them don't really realize how big the threat is. On a global scale, they just want to get off the train, and some of them also are like, well, like we're carrying zombies. This could have an impact on the entire country or the world. Like a lot of different perspectives here. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. I think that's really smart writing.
I feel like we've lost the thread on that a little bit, but I love the way that we first start seeing zombies for the first time. I love when our protagonist's daughter, his little girl, is looking out the window of the train as it's leaving the station. Our protagonist has fallen asleep, so he's not even paying attention, and she sees someone outside the window. All of a sudden, just a zombie just jumps on them, and it's a really brief moment, but super shocking. We don't even see any blood, but it's just this very strange, surreal sort of moment.
It reminded me of the beginning of my favorite movie, Nick of Time. Johnny Depp and his daughter are coming into Union Station in LA, and Johnny Depp's like asleep, and daughter's looking out the window and sees like some like homeless people like beating each other with 2x4s underneath a bridge or something. She's like horrified, and it's just a little foreshadowing that, you know, innocence is going to be lost today.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nicely done, anyways.
I like that too, and it was kind of surreal and creepy too, and like she didn't really know what to make of it.
It felt like a very real, non-cinematic, non-stagey kind of moment. Like that's something that you would plausibly see. That's a plausible way to portray the zombie kind of outbreak happening. If you're on a commuter train, all of a sudden you just see someone get jumped as the train kind of races out of the station, and you're safe ostensibly, but there's something not right going on, and you've seen the origins of it. It's a weird moment.
Right. And it's chilling for us, and it's suspenseful for us because we know we're watching a zombie movie, and we know that things are bad before the characters do.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they kind of find out. Basically, you know, not to harp on the nuts and bolts of the plot line too much, but, you know, so they're on this train, they're going from Seoul to Busan, and it starts with, you know, just one, like, kind of infected girl fleeing the zombie hordes that we don't see, really, and kind of just hops on the train, and then she ends up, you know, infecting a whatever the hell you call a flight attendant on a train.
Train attendant?
Train attendant.
Yeah.
And it just kind of snowballs from there.
Oh, and that's another weird little moment, too, where you look back up the stairs that she's fled down to the train, and there's this group gathered around what's clearly some sort of fight, probably a zombie attacking someone, but you can't really see exactly what it is, and it's an extreme wide shot from the POV of inside the train looking up these stairs. Another weird little moment that's a nice kind of precursor to the madness that's about to go down.
It's all very, you know, ground level, good point of view. To be honest, guys, I've recommended this before. It's not a great movie, I don't think, but Oliver Stone's 9/11 or Oliver Stone's World Trade Center about 9/11. I really like the beginning of that movie because you see 9/11, which we're all familiar with from like a bird's eye perspective.
Wait, what's 9/11?
Yeah.
Wow, you actually thought about that for a second.
I thought I missaid the name of the movie.
Oh, okay.
But
where the fuck are you going with this?
You see the events of the day playing out from the perspective of like Joe Firefighter.
That's
who doesn't
cool.
understand what's happening till, you know, never really understands what's happening because, you know, but the buildings fall on them and they still don't know what happened really until the end of the movie.
Yeah, because none of us lived the experience of 9/11 happening and not understanding what the fuck was going on.
Not like these guys. I mean, this is before the TV cameras, you know, started covering
I
it.
know.
Anyway, so just that kind of like, you know, doomsday from Joe on the Street's perspective. Pretty good stuff in a movie. That's what I'm saying.
I'll watch it right after Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
You're not gonna have time, man.
That's true. I might have to watch it after Halloween. I'll watch Oliver Stone's World Trade Center in November.
Let's watch it on Halloween.
Yes.
That'll be our Halloween.
Perfect.
Night.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's
Michael
depressing.
Shannon's in it.
Oh shit.
Yep.
I'm definitely watching it then.
Yep. Full Shannon mode.
Does he play Osama bin Laden?
Michael Shannon plays a true life figure. I'm not sure. I think he's like a ex-Marine. No such thing as a former Marine.
Can we stop? Michael Shannon, y'all. 9/11, y'all.
Michael Shannon as Rudy Giuliani.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, well.
Train to Busan.
How do we get this train back on track?
That's kind of the question of the movie.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, classic, nice ensemble cast of characters for a disaster movie who we're introduced to.
Kind of a little bit of your stock cast for a train, bus, plane
There's
movie.
a pregnant woman.
Yeah, pregnant woman.
There's hard ass, like working class husband.
Yeah.
You've got,
who seems like he might be too macho at first.
You've got the corporate...
Who's actually my favorite character.
He's
got
great.
the corporate snake who's always in these movies, who's in the suit and tie, and he's just like, I need to save myself, and what the fuck are the rest of you doing?
Was he the CEO of the train company, or did I misunderstand?
He was the CEO of a train company. Okay. I don't know if it was the same... Because I'm glad I researched the rail system in South Korea, because there's the train system, and then there's individual train platforms, individual train operators and stuff like that. So, but he was definitely working for the rail lines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which company. It doesn't really matter, I guess.
There's a young couple who's in love, a couple of teenagers in love.
Oh yeah, teenagers in love. This is really watch snakes on a plane.
Oh, there's a baseball team, a whole baseball team on the
cricket baseball team.
Is it cricket?
Baseball. It's just baseball. Dude, they love baseball in South Korea. Haven't you seen
their bats looked really
what's
short.
That movie? Is that South Korea?
What a size queen.
No, but their bats didn't look like baseball bats.
No, they were baseball bats.
Were they?
Yeah, we're going to have to go to the cages.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. They look short to me.
We were talking earlier about how I had a great point to make about this movie. I'll just make it now. I mean, the reason it's a baseball team is how the fuck else would they have weapons on this train to combat the zombies?
Well, they don't really combat the zombies with the weapons, barely.
No, the baseball bats come into play.
They come into play, but I mean, that's something else I appreciate like that. Like, there's never a moment where they're like, oh, guys, if you do this one thing, you kill the zombie. I don't think a zombie dies in this whole fucking movie.
No, they don't.
And the baseball bats are used, but they're used to kind of push them back and,
exactly.
Stuff like that.
That's true. Zombies are only ever, kind of momentarily deterred.
It's like a game of chess. They're trying to, get as far as they can away from the zombies, and the zombies are always they're always an obstacle until they get to the front of the train.
Yeah.
Because
that's pretty much the whole movie from there on out.
Probably half at least of the population of the train becomes zombie real quick. And they've kind of quarantined them in a section of the train with the sliding glass partitions between the cars, because the zombies aren't smart enough to slide the partition. They only know how to pound on shit.
Which, this is another reason why I think I disagree with you guys' earlier point about not explaining the rules of zombies. There are some very specific rules of zombies in this movie that are pretty explicitly laid out. But these zombies are not smart enough to open doors. That's established.
But they're unique to this movie.
Exactly.
Those are unique rules that this movie establishes. I've seen zombie movies, I think, where zombies can, open a sliding door.
And this movie establishes them, really discreetly. There's not really a lot of conversation. There's a moment where there's a big, imbroglio going on between people and zombies, and then they pass under a tunnel and the zombies stop moving. And it's oh, well, they can't, see.
Nobody ever explains anything. It's
no,
always shown, always discovered accidentally.
They totally discuss the fact that they can't open doors, and they also discuss the fact that they only chase people if they can actually see them. So they paper over the door so that the zombies stop chasing them.
Another
they can't see them through the window.
Reference to the commuter. Because at the end of the commuter, they have to put water on the windows, and I think that's such a specific.
Actually, sad that's in another movie, because I thought that was brilliant.
I think the commuter reference Train to Busan.
The commuter had to have done that deliberately, because that's such a specific thing. The idea that you can wet the windows and put your newspapers up on it, and they'll stick, and you can cover the windows
really
like that.
Similar.
It's a really specific thing, and then they do that at the climax of the commuter as Patrick Wilson infiltrates the train, and they're trying to hide out from the police snipers.
Who would be intimidated by Patrick Wilson?
Watch the commuter.
Seriously?
Watch Insidious Chapter 2.
I just think of Patrick Wilson as the pot-bellied aging night owl.
Patrick Wilson is surprisingly versatile.
I love Patrick Wilson. Patrick, if you're listening, call me.
In fact, Patrick Wilson was poor casting for Night Owl. You need someone more pot-bellied.
Oh yeah, he was too sexy to be Night Owl.
Oh,
like, Night
yeah.
Owl needs
Tim
to be
Allen
a
needs
long
to be
shot.
Night
like
Owl.
that's actually
Brian
kind of
Cox
brilliant.
or something.
Brian Cox. Tim Allen.
Brian Cox is too old, but Tim Allen is kind of perfect for Night Owl.
I mean, when he's not doing coke.
Jesus.
All right. Well, that might be too much.
Why do we talk? Oh, Patrick Wilson. Yeah, dude, watch Insidious
I'm
Chapter
just
2.
envisioning the like sex scene from Watchmen now with like fucking Hallelujah playing in the background, and then she like pushes the button on the fucking owl ship to blast the flames as she comes, and just at that moment,
No!
Brilliant.
Jesus.
Zack Snyder, get on that.
Zack Snyder, stop making zombie
Reshoots.
movies.
where were we?
Wow. I was going to just
I
say
don't know, but we
Patrick
came
Wilson's
full
a
circle with
badass,
Zack
but
Snyder,
We came
I
full
have to say.
circle on even
Yeah.
But you should...
And you know he's going to George Lucas the fuck out of that movie someday.
Oh
yeah.
God, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you should watch Insidious Chapter 2. That's
To see just how intimidating Patrick Wilson can be.
it's not a great movie, but it's a movie I like because, again,
I had a blast
when I
with
watch
that
these
movie.
movies, I feel like I'm interfacing with the filmmakers a little bit, and I felt in Insidious Chapter 2, you can tell everyone's just having a great time. The last 40 minutes are just like batshit. Patrick Wilson like banging on doors and screaming, and
But I don't
Wilson
remember,
is having
like,
a great
Insidious,
time in that
again,
movie.
this comes down to, like, how generic horror movie titles are these days. Brilliantly generic, I should say. I mean, I can't believe that there hadn't been a movie called Insidious. I don't remember what that's about. Like, I can't tell the Insidious from The Conjuring.
you want it to be called Patrick Wilson banging on doors and screaming.
Yeah, something more specific.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually one of the things I like
I
about...
thought you were going to say you couldn't tell Insidious from Sinister, which is quite.
Oh,
a
that's
valid point.
that's actually what I was thinking of, but I was like, James Wan, whatever.
But for what we're doing on this project, watching every horror movie on Netflix, that's one of the things I like, because you see a movie called like Be Afraid, you got no idea what it's about, or Bedeviled, you don't know what it's about until you watch it. You know, it's all pretty vague.
You have to ask Mr. Bedevil to find out.
Yeah.
Mr. Bedevil.
Bedevil.
Oh, Lord.
Woo!
Let's get back on that train.
Yeah.
Back on the train. Yeah.
I mean,
Back on the train, gang.
it might be a good juncture to talk about that point where the train actually stops.
Yeah, because it stops
We get
pretty
up
early
at the
on.
station.
Because that's the thing. You know, they got zombies on the train, and they're moving. They're trying to, basically once the zombie outbreak happens, they're like, all right, well, where can we let these people off? But the whole country's fucked, basically.
And our protagonist, the South Korean Gordon Gekko, tries to establish
We'll just
basically
call him that from now on.
yeah. Basically tries to get himself airlifted out of this train station. He tries to break away from the rest of the group.
Right.
And he calls one of his contacts so that he and his daughter
They
can
lay
get
that
out.
on thick. I think before that point in the movie, the daughter has already looked at him and been like, "You don't care about anyone but yourself."
Yeah.
Or something,
Don't you
right?
care about people?
Right, because she's like a bleeding heart, and she's always trying to help people and stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy Gordon Gekko actually looks her in the eye as her father, and is like, "Listen, the shit's going down. You have to look out for yourself and nobody else."
Yeah.
Which is kind of his MO, even in civilian everyday life.
Yeah. It's very, very explicitly
It's not subtle at
articulated.
all.
No.
And who knows? Maybe it's more subtle if you are not reading subtitles, and maybe in the original language it was a little more subtle, but I doubt it.
Mm-hmm. But as he's trying to get away to his little getaway, a zombie comes down the hallway. There's also a really weird scene where all the other people who are on the train are going down a separate escalator, and they see the army outside, and all of a sudden the army turns around. The whole army is fucking
they're at
zombies.
this station because they've been told that the army's there.
Yes.
And it's safe. And then this guy, Gordon Gekko, called his friend that he has his stock account. He's like, "Hey, I'll give you a stock tip if you tell me what the deal is." And he's like, "All right, don't go to the main square. Do this other thing. Blah 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 blah."
Mm-hmm.
But that when you see that lone soldier coming in, I thought of a joke. What is a zombie's favorite comedian?
Oh boy.
Who is a zombie's favorite comedian?
Is that the punchline?
No.
Who is the zombie's favorite comedian?
Oh man.
Hold on.
Fuck. It's got to be I feel like there's only 5 comedians that can be the answer to this, and I'm running through like all your favorite comedians.
No, you'll never guess.
Okay, who?
Brian Posehn.
Zombies. A zombie's favorite comedian, Gary Shambling.
Oh, okay.
God.
That's pretty good.
Because you see, like, there's this lone soldier shambling around the corner, full zombie mode, and they're like, "Oh, a soldier! Thank God!" I'm like, guys, I thought you guys were keen on zombies. This guy's shambling like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
So they gotta get back on the train.
Yeah.
Long story short.
And a zombie almost gets Gordon Gekko's daughter, but then the macho dude from the train.
Oh yeah, Macho Man with the
who
pregnant
he's had
wife.
like a big, like him and the macho dude have been assholes to each other this whole time. The macho dude kind of hates him because the macho dude is basically a good dude.
Macho
actually.
dude finds out, first of all, he's not impressed by his callous, self-centered behavior that he's witnessed. Yeah. And also, the daughter has told Macho Man that her dad is a fund manager.
Right.
And so he's like, oh, he's one of those leeches on society, Goldman Sachs. Same thing as the fucking commuter.
He's part of the 99%.
Dude, on the commuter. There's the guy who works for Goldman.
Do we need to do a separate episode on the commuter? Because you guys are getting real hot.
There's the
and
guy
bothered
on the
about
train
this.
and the commuter who works for Goldman Sachs.
Oh, right.
And Liam Neeson literally goes over to him and is like, oh, and one more thing. On behalf of the American people, fuck you. Or something like that.
I need to see this movie.
And that's basically what the guy says.
You really don't.
That's basically what he says to his pregnant wife. He's like, oh, he's a hedge fund manager, a leech on society. He contributes nothing. He's a rich asshole.
Yeah.
Perfect. When was this movie made?
2016.
Yeah.
Really? It's that recent.
Came out in the U.S. in 2017. I think
wow.
February of last year. Yeah.
So it's a brand new baby.
I mean, not quite.
Well, I'm sure. Close enough.
But once they get back on the train, there's a series of highly inventive sequences, which I don't know how much detail we want to get into.
I don't know how much we need to. I mean, there's a lot of really great action sequences on the train.
Yeah, inventive stuff.
Like, definitely, I'm not going to give my review yet, but there's a lot worth watching here.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed all of the sort of tight, confined action sequences involving people trying to advance beyond the zombies and get to a safe place. And at this point, we also learn that, and I think this is a little too convenient, that Busan is a quarantine zone, which is where they were headed in the first place.
It's also the end of the line.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. But I just feel like that's, like, everybody seems to have, like, take solace in that information. It's like, but, like, where else were you going to go? You know, like, I don't know. It seemed kind of silly.
Well, for a while, they think they're going to the one city where they stop and everything turns out to be fucked.
They're basically just trying to find a city that's not overrun by zombies, and they don't know. And really, they don't even know that Busan is safe. Like, they know nowhere else is safe.
Busan is a goal only for Gordon Gekko and his daughter. Like, it's not really a goal
everyone else
for
is
the
pissed
others.
because they wanted to get off the train earlier.
Yeah.
But they're going to the end of the line, which is Busan, which is, according to the map I looked at, it's like in the southeast of the country, you know.
Is it like BFE?
And we'll link to that map in our show notes.
I don't know if it's BFE, but it's definitely like on the opposite end of the country from Seoul.
Like, how far of a commute do you think it is?
I mean, South Korea is a small country. I don't know.
I'll look it up.
I don't know. Also, South Korea has high-speed rail throughout, but not all the lines are high-speed rail. And in this movie, you see they have kind of a traditional locomotive pulling the train. The train itself is very sleek. It looks like kind of a high-speed rail train, but it's chained up to like an old locomotive. And that's true. They do have high-speed rail in South Korea, but they also have kind of conventional rail. And the route...
Ooh.
The route to Busan from one of the other cities that they mentioned in this movie is only traditional rail. They don't have a high-speed line, so it's pretty accurate.
3.5 hours. 3.5 hour train
That's like
journey.
a cross-country trip, pretty
Basically,
much, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And this whole
So
thing...
it's like Michigan.
Well, yeah, this whole thing, because
Yeah.
they leave in the morning, and he expects to be back, like, at lunchtime. You know? He's going to go there and drop off his daughter and come back all in the morning. This isn't supposed to be a long train journey, and it is extended because
a long train journey
the shit
tonight.
hits the fan. Yeah. But yeah, when they get back on the train, there's a sequence where there's like some of the characters have to make their way through like 3 or 4 train cars worth of straight up zombies. And you're like, there's no way they're going to do this. There's no way. And they have to be very clever about it. And it was pretty thrilling and pretty exciting and pretty fun to see the creative and intelligent ways that they came up with to get through the zombies. It was a lot of fun.
Also fun to see the macho guy take off his blazer for the first time in the whole movie, and it turns out he's fucking ripped.
He looks fat
At one
and then
point,
he's ripped.
Yeah.
He fights with a sword, basically the equivalent of a sword and shield.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was fucking amazing to me, as they're trying to board the plane or the train after they stop off, and he's like trying to race back and like beat the zombies away.
I love that character because, I mean, he was an archetype and he basically transforms into a different archetype, but I just loved that at first. I mean, he seems fairly schlubby at first and then turns out to be basically the biggest badass in the whole movie.
Right. You definitely want him
he's got
on your team.
he's got a pregnant wife on the
He's
train
got the
too,
most
so
invested on this train, right?
yeah, and I love when he springs into action. Like, I was really rooting for him more than anyone else at that point.
Mm-hmm. He's like running alongside the train trying to get back on it, and he takes a sort of detour. He like zigzags out from the train to grab a fucking riot shield and a billy club, I think
so.
Beats up a bunch of zombies and then jumps on the train.
It's incredible.
Badass.
Awesome. Really, I don't want to talk about him anymore without going to the spoiler room.
I don't either.
Is there anything else we need to talk about before we go down those stairs, down the little spoiler room?
I don't think so.
We hopping right on the train to the spoiler room.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a real short ride.
Only one thing to do before we go down there
is ask Greg to finally fix the fucking AC down there.
Well, I was thinking we need to view it, cue it, or screw it.
Oh, okay. Well, Greg, you're on notice. You're on blast, buddy. Chris, would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
You know, I told you I don't like zombie movies, and I was on the fence about this for a bit. I'm going to give this movie a view it. I'm going to give Train to Busan a view it. I watched this movie late at night last night, and for the first few minutes, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to go to sleep, and we'll pick up the rest tomorrow. I couldn't turn it off after the first few minutes, and this is one of the longest movies we've watched. This is a 2-hour movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it flew by. The tension and the suspense and the action kept me interested through all 2 hours of it. And despite the fact that zombies don't really do it for me, I thought the characters were interesting enough. Not great. I thought the action sequences were well done and pretty original at times. And again, I can't say enough about the undercurrent of humanity in this movie and kind of the optimism that this movie has, despite it being a gory death fest. And you know what? I'm not ashamed to admit I teared up a couple times watching this movie.
Oh, that's cute.
And I shed some tears. And what can you ask for? Now, we'll talk more about that in the spoiler room. But what more can you ask for from a movie? I'll give it a view it. Steven.
I'll give it a cue it. Again, after the first few minutes, I was like, oh God, another zombie movie. It really captured my attention, even though I felt like there were a lot of failings along the way. I mean, it's an exciting film. I think the action is like top notch. It's almost cartoonish, and this is clearly like a mid-budget movie, but they make it look really big.
Yeah,
and yeah, for a zombie movie, I mean, I guess that's why I'm giving it a cue. I've seen enough zombie movies. This doesn't really break any ground. I mean, I think of like Snowpiercer as like the best recent South Korean action movie on a train. It's really tried to do the same thing, but
maybe
with
the first,
zombies.
and this is the second.
I guess so. I would say like go watch Snowpiercer. That's a view it. This is a cue it. It's a fun movie. I don't think it like brings a lot that I haven't seen to the genre, but I don't regret watching it.
I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. That was what was kind of holding me back. I'm not sure if I would recommend it to myself. I'm not sure if there's anyone in my mind I would recommend this movie to, but still, I thought it was very well done. And if you like zombies, it's a no-brainer. Watch this movie.
No pun intended. Right?
Oh.
Yeah, no, if you like zombies, this is definitely one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen. I wish this had come out like 10 years ago or 15 years ago before zombies started becoming, part of the zeitgeist again. Because this really really nails it. And yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's like, of course this is how you do it. Patrick, view it, cue it, or screw it?
Well, first, I am shocked that you gave it a cue it, actually, because you seemed so wholeheartedly on board the Train to Busan so far. I figured
So to
you were a
speak.
view it for sure. And now this is
I
making me
bought
wonder.
the ticket. I took the ride, but
This is now making me wonder how many view its you've actually given out, and I want to check this before we go to the spoiler room.
I think
I'll
it's
find
only
out what
one.
I'll
the,
look
what
it
the
up
tally
while
is.
you give your rating.
I'm going to give it a view it. But it is kind of a low view it for me. I went into this with a lot of enthusiasm, and it is a really fun movie. It's very entertaining. It's emotional, as we've said already. But I don't know. I don't know if I can quite say it's a great movie, and I don't know if I can quite say it actually lived up to the expectations I had for it. But it is very well done and worth your time, unlike a lot of the fucking movies that we've watched so far.
I agree. It's the lowest view it I've given, but
Sure.
it's solidly a view it for me.
Sure.
if I'm judging against everything else we've seen, it's a view it. But for my own personal taste, cue it.
Sure. For the record, Steven has given a view it to 4 movies. So
Oh, wow.
More than I thought. Let's hear it.
That's actually fewer than I thought. I thought you had given out more.
A Dark Song, of course.
Yeah.
It Follows.
Oh, well, yeah.
Gerald's Game. And,
What? You gave that a view it?
And
Oh,
oddly,
yeah, I love that movie.
Did I give that a
oddly-
view it?
yes.
What's the anomaly here?
What anomaly?
You said oddly, so what is it?
Oddly, you gave a view it to ABCs of Death too.
Wow.
Wow, did I?
Yep.
That was a lot of fun. There's some good shit in there.
Yep.
Okay.
Huh.
And if you want to find out more trivia along those lines, every horror movie on Netflix.com, you can see the whole list and all our ratings for everything we've watched so far, including Train to Busan. With that, I guess we'll head down to the spoiler room, talk a little more about, some of the moments that we liked, some of the moments we didn't like, who lives, who dies, and so on and so forth. If you like zombies, you want to see the movie, go check it out. Otherwise, see you down in the spoiler room in just a minute. All right, welcome back. We're in the spoiler room, still on this damn Train to Busan, and we're going to be talking about the moments that made us cry.
I didn't cry
Is that what we're doing?
I don't know, did a moment make you cry, Patrick?
No.
Oh, I guess
I didn't tear up in this movie.
Yeah, I cry. I cried a little bit, but to be fair, it was late at night, and also this movie didn't totally deserve the tears. I don't think, because there's some really heavy emotional moments in this movie, but it's not that they're done particularly well. It's just it's hard to go wrong when you're portraying people sacrificing themselves in front of their loved ones to save their loved ones, which happens
Sure.
more than once in this movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's heavy and emotional, but it's also kind of by the numbers.
Well, yes, I'm with you. I did think one moment in particular went way over the line and actually made me laugh rather than cry. But this
Which
movie,
one? We're in the spoiler room. Let's just get to it.
well, when Gordon Gekko jumps off the train, I mean, it's fucking hilarious.
Wait, you mean when he flashes back to holding his infant daughter?
Oh, that was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, but when he actually sacrifices himself, I laughed.
No, I thought that was great.
So we're in the spoiler room. So the arc, the main character's arc with the guy we've been calling Gordon Gekko with the daughter, he's slowly learned over the course of the movie and all the horrors that it pays to put other people ahead of yourself.
Sacrifice.
And this culminates with him. He gets bit, and he by a zombie while defending his daughter, and he has to sacrifice himself basically, and he throws himself from the train, and he dies. And he doesn't die. He's just
There's
a zombie,
this
wild
cheap
zombie.
soap opera music playing, and he's smiling and crying at the same time
It's
before he
very
jumps off. It's
saccharine.
so yeah,
It was
it's
great. He was
ridiculous.
turning into a zombie. He's having his final moment of humanity. I mean, the actual visual of showing him in this room flooded with light, flashing back to holding his infant daughter for the first time, was way too much.
And it was
That was
unnecessary.
laughable.
That was
because we
way
already
too
know
much.
he loves his daughter.
But him with his eyes glazing over, becoming a zombie for the first time, but also still a smile on his face from thinking about his daughter. And then also, I loved the visual. It was a haunting visual and really simple, but effectively done, showing the silhouette of the train and him jumping off it in slow motion was excellent. Loved that.
You know, it would have worked better with a different score. Like, the music just totally ruined it for me.
The whole ending of the movie was less well done than the most of the movie.
I would agree. It really did kind of, God, for lack of a better term, it did like go off the rails at a certain point.
It did go off the rails. And again, it's kind of another example of a movie sticking to its premise. Say what you will about the commuter, but the motherfucker gets on the train at the beginning, and the movie doesn't end until he's off the train, and then the movie ends.
This movie should have ended when that motherfucker Gordon Gekko got off the train.
Like, this movie, the train eventually comes to a stop in a train yard, and then they get off, and there's all sorts of hijinks happen.
The conductor is trying to like board a different train, and there's a zombie in it.
There's zombies all over the place.
Yeah.
The asshole corporate executive who's been looking out for himself the whole time and trying to fuck
that guy was
everyone up.
a dick.
He
We
was a
haven't even
huge
talked about
dick.
him.
I don't want to talk about him. He makes me
Holy
angry.
shit.
And I was disappointed because he's the kind of guy where you're like, this guy... Because it's his fault. The most adorable character in the whole movie, the like innocent cheerleader for the baseball team, gets fed to the zombies.
Gordon's daughter was the most adorable.
Oh, all right. You got me on a technicality.
But also the cheerleader was pretty adorable.
Right.
And
she gets fed to the zombies because of this guy.
That was heartbreaking. I loved
God,
the
yeah, he was
romance
such a
between
dick.
her and the baseball player. Like, I thought that was so
great.
cute.
And I wish that they had expressed it a little bit better, that like they were both content to be zombies as long as they were together.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that moment.
Because it was hinted at, but not like,
Oh,
you know, he didn't mind
that was
getting bit
good.
by her.
yeah, and it was all sort of out of frame.
Yeah.
That's a nice shot.
Good
That was
stuff.
sweet.
But the corporate asshole who's behind all this,
This is backing up a bit, but he tried to stop our heroes. We talked about them trying to work their way up through like 4 cars of zombies. He actively blocks the door to try and keep them from getting in.
Right.
I guess just because he's paranoid that one of them is actually going to be a
everyone's
zombie.
paranoid.
That's
and
a
for good
really
reason.
tense set piece right there.
Yeah.
I love
because
that sequence.
these guys have cleared like 4 cars of zombies without a scratch, and it's been very difficult. We've been with them every step of the way, and they finally get to the car with the survivors in it, and they're like, wait a minute, these guys, no way they made it through 4 cars of zombies without a scratch. They're infected as fuck. We need to lock the door, keep them out. You'd think that this could be very calmly explained. Like, zombies do a lot of things, but one thing they don't do is say, excuse us, kind sirs, we are not zombies. We would permission to come aboard.
Well, and this movie is established, I mean, many times that when you become infected, you show signs of being infected really quickly, like within like a minute, probably.
Well, they can't see them because they have the paper over the door still.
No, that's a different scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
yeah.
they can see
But
them, and
really,
they're just
this
like, oh,
guy
I've
just seems like a dick.
He's just a dick, and he's kind of, you know, he's a counterpoint to our main guy Gordon Gekko, where he's kind of the same guy, but he's to a higher degree.
played by Michael Douglas, we should add. Yeah. Reprising his
hope
classic
Michael
role.
Douglas stars in Train to Sacramento.
Oh,
That'd be
yeah. Yeah. No, actually, he should play the corporate snake.
It'll be like Dwayne Johnson will be the main guy in Train to Sacramento.
I'm
mean,
so tired of him.
I love him, but no.
Anyway,
But I mean, it feels xenophobic, really. It almost feels like a metaphor for xenophobia on this corporate guy's part, that he won't let these guys
I felt the same way.
into the train car.
It felt like there might have been some kind of social context that I didn't quite get because I don't know a lot about South Korea, but it still felt universal. I mean, I've seen this in many horror films where there's sort of this struggle for survival and like certain people kind of get left behind or challenged.
Let me ask you guys a question about a plot detail that I didn't quite understand, and I watched this scene twice, where Gordon takes a call about something about YS Holdings, and there's something about like him or his company actually being responsible for this outbreak. I didn't understand that fully.
all right. This is why I rewatched the beginning of the movie. Like I said we would get to that later. I think what they were trying to communicate is that this guy's a corporate, or he's a fund manager. He cares about his bottom line. And early in the movie, when we first meet him, he's dumping a ton of stocks in, I think, the like zombie manufacturing company. There's a biotech company that is responsible for this outbreak. And when
The ZMC.
And when I don't know the name of it. Is that the name of it?
No, the zombie manufacturing
YS.
company.
Okay, sure.
YS.
Sure. So they're heavily invested in this. And we know from the prologue that, like, maybe this isn't the first time that this company has done something, because there's been a farmer who had to lose his pigs, etc., whatever. And they see the writing on the wall, they see the fish dying, they see something's going on that's strange, and so they dump all their stocks. And the office lackey is like, that might crash the whole market, because, like, I guess they have, like, just a shit ton of money invested in this thing.
Okay.
And then later he takes the call, and the guy's like, holy shit, like, the company behind this, that was, like, the company at the center of our whole business portfolio. So, like...
I wrote down the line that corresponded to that.
Right,
yeah.
Because basically they were the, like, primary investor in this company that ended up creating the zombie outbreak. And it just reinforces the theme of, like, you know, putting the bottom line ahead of people.
Yeah.
Like that.
But his decision didn't have any effect on this whole situation.
It wasn't the decision that he made personally within the events of the movie, but it was the decision of the company to invest in this kind of operation. That's how I interpreted it.
I like it because it shows how, like, his sort of greed and self-focus, like, not only affects his family, but ends up affecting the entire country.
Right. And then there's a scene...
How one might say greed is not good.
Right. And then he takes the call, and he's got blood on his hands from the zombies, and he's washing his hands, and the blood won't come off.
Like Lady Macbeth.
Yeah. He can't get the blood off his hands because he's responsible for the whole damn thing. So, again, themes laid on thick in this movie, but in the service of something that's, you know, an interesting political point, commentary.
Yeah. I also wrote down, in my memory of this movie is oddly hazy, even though I remember a lot of every detail we talked about. I wrote down as a joke to myself, don't trust the government. But, like, did you really feel like there was any, like, social comment? A lot of the reviews, like, point to this being, like, a very socially conscious zombie movie. And I didn't really walk away from it feeling like I, like, learned anything.
No,
on that level.
It's preaching to the choir, but it is saying things.
Okay.
I mean, if it's preaching to my politics. I don't know. Maybe someone else.
Same.
Maybe someone else would watch it and feel moved and like they were exposed to something new.
But I felt like that was all kind of standard. I'm like, if you're gonna make a zombie movie like this, then, like, the government's gonna try and, like, you know, they're gonna, like, deliberate before they release information about what's happening. There's a lot of that where, like, they're talking to the train conductor about, like, where it's safe to stop or whatever, and, like, they're not ready to say it's a zombie outbreak.
Right. Basically, it's like saying, you know, don't trust government press releases, don't trust corporations, don't trust finance bros, and be good to your fellow man over yourself.
Yeah, there's no unique insights in
pretty
this film.
standard.
It's not The Dark Knight.
But for South Korea, who knows? Like, I wonder, I would like to read reviews from South Korea. Like, I don't really know what the political climate is there right now. Like, this might be, like, maybe a revolutionary film there. I don't know.
No idea. But the evil corporate character, while he's doing all these horrible things to everybody, I was like, you know, he's a bad man, but I know he's going to get his, and it's going to be horrible. And when he gets his, it's not that horrible. He just becomes a zombie, which is kind of the default option for people in this movie. I wanted to see something really bad happen to him.
I was similarly disappointed in that.
We also haven't talked about something that, this is not spoiler material, but something that struck me a lot is how fast the fucking zombies move in this movie. Like, they're World War Z fucking 28 days later.
Did you see World War Z?
Yeah. Fast ass zombies. And the film is sped up a bit every time you see zombies moving.
It's a little distracting.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes they, like, pile up on top of each other in a wave because they're moving so fast, and it's just a fucking, like, little mountain
when they're going
of
upstairs
zombies
or escalators,
that spills.
just like a big...
Well, let me ask you about World War Z, because I've seen this movie compared. People have said this is the movie World War Z should have been.
Right,
and they're
I've seen
drawing
it too.
comparisons to World War Z. So, explain.
Oh, I honestly, I don't remember that much about World War Z. It wasn't a very good movie. Probably the most memorable thing about it. I mean, obviously, literally the most memorable thing about it
Brad
was...
Pitt's dick, right?
No, you don't see his dick. Was
What?
the speed... Yeah.
But on Blu-ray.
Was the speed with which the zombies moved, because that's literally the main and possibly only thing I remember about that movie.
And, like, how is that interesting? Like, who cares if zombies are slow or fast? Like, they have the same effect either way.
I mean, because usually they don't move fast. That's why it's interesting.
Well, I mean, that rule was broken with 28 Days Later.
Interesting.
Like, if that's what makes World War Z interesting, then World War Z is irrelevant.
Well, World War Z sort of took it to the next level by, like, having just a giant pile up of fast-moving zombies summiting, I think it was like the Great Wall of China or something shit like that.
Yeah.
This time they're on
trailer.
roller skates. They're super fast.
Ice skates, that'd be great.
Ice skates.
Zombies
the world's frozen
on
over.
segways.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Segways are terrifying enough in the first place.
Are you guys ready for a hot take?
Always.
Open the oven. Bring it out. Should we let it cool a little bit first? Should we put a toothpick in it to see if it's done?
Hot and ready. 28 weeks later, way better than 28 days later.
Agreed. That's not even a hot take. I've been saying that since I saw 28 Weeks Later.
I was screaming in the theater watching 28 Weeks Later.
Great.
I remember nothing about it, but it moved me a lot more than 28 Days Later.
Isn't that from the director of Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom? Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom?
It?
I think so. Isn't that J.A. Bayona?
I don't know. I hope so. Time out.
You
We'll
know,
check.
I've heard this since 28 Weeks Later came out, and I will say the reason I like 28 Days Later on its own, not having seen the sequel, is just the atmosphere. Like, I don't really care about the zombie drama. I feel like it has, like, a mood. It's like a...
Sure.
Like, it's like a feature-length music video for me.
Wait, which
and
one?
It's got a lot of
Days or Weeks?
Days. It's got, like, you know, Brian Eno, like, you know, songs from Apollo and shit on it.
Oh, I am incorrect. Different director.
Who directed 28 Weeks Later? What else has he done?
Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. He directed... really nothing else you've heard of.
Oh, that's a damn shame. Well, I hope he's still getting work.
Well, I should finally see it because I've heard great things, but I feel like I won't want to compare it to the original.
And it was, what year was that? 28 Weeks Later.
2007.
Wow.
Jesus.
God, we're old.
Recent.
Yeah.
I thought it was older than that, to be honest.
I didn't.
Yeah, anyway. So back on topic.
So the pregnant woman and Gordon Gekko's daughter finally make it to the end of the line. They make it to Busan. They're walking through a tunnel because the train stops. The tracks are blocked off.
I like that because you don't know when they get off the train. They get off the train and there's like charred corpses.
Yeah.
There's fire. There's smoke. And you're like, maybe Busan is no longer standing.
Mm-hmm.
But they go through the tunnel.
And then they're in crosshairs.
Yeah, there's
like, we don't know
the army is
or where they're going to get
I've never
killed.
been so happy to see like army dudes before.
I was excited, and then I felt like, oh, fuck no, like, take your finger off the trigger.
And yeah, see,
they're given orders to shoot.
They were given that, so they're aiming on them, and they're like, "Well, are they infected or not?" And the guy's like, "Fuck if I know. I just see their silhouettes." And their commander is like, "Well, shoot them." And I was worried for a second, but I was like, "This movie's got way too much humanity. If this movie had actually shot those people, it would at least be a cue it in my book, if not a screw it.
It would be a screw it at that
would
point
have lost
for me.
a ton of capital.
I was on edge. I was like, I'm on a cue it. If they die, it's a screw it.
I was not
Wow.
worried for me. I was not worried for them. I was worried for the movie and its rating on the show.
Same. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. But no, it's a movie that is fundamentally about humanity and optimistic. So the guy, he doesn't shoot him quick enough, and he hears the girl singing. There's a theme about her singing a song. At a
She wanted to sing it
recital.
for her dad, right?
Right. And so she's
Yeah.
still singing it for her dad, who just like sacrificed himself. And
that's how they realize, oh, she's not a zombie.
so
She's singing.
she's
human.
saved
Yeah.
more than once, kind of by her dad in the memory of her
This
dad.
little girl just tearing it up in the final moments of the film. Again, great performance all the way through, and she's just sobbing as she's singing this song.
Oh yeah,
walking
she's
through
great.
the tunnel.
She's very magnetic.
Turns out
as a
they're
performer.
saved. Cut to credits. Actually, great ending.
Great ending.
I was surprised that it just boom went right to credits from that.
Yeah,
but
none of that horror movie horse shit where they tack on something pessimistic, no
Or-
sequel setup.
or even sort of driving home more of the point that they're saved and showing the emotional reaction of them, like meeting up with the army folks or whatever. It's just
Or her mom. I
they're
mean, that
gonna
was
be
the
okay.
whole journey. And like, I didn't even feel
Right.
dissatisfied knowing she doesn't get to meet her mom. It is kind of a typical sort of like setup for a sequel, which there will be a sequel apparently. But it felt like the emotional journey was complete, even as abrupt as it ended, because there was obviously a conflict between her and her father, and like she came to understand that he was capable of loving her.
Yes.
It didn't matter if she met her mom, who she already loves and has a good relationship with.
And we don't know. The mom may or may not be dead. We don't know.
Yeah, no
True.
clue.
Yeah.
And I guess it doesn't matter.
It wouldn't.
But a pretty
the
bold
movie,
ending, I think.
The movie would have gained nothing from showing her reuniting with the mom.
Exactly, because we already know that relationship is fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which that's maybe a conversation for a different day, but a lot of people sometimes get hung up on those kind of superficial plot elements. Like, oh, but did she ever
Not
make it
me.
to her mom? And I'm like, no, that's not what the movie's about.
If you use your imagination, like, yeah, maybe she does. Maybe the mom's a zombie. Like, I didn't care.
She's going to be okay either way. So.
She's a woman now.
I wouldn't go that far.
Kidding.
She's like 7.
She'll be a woman soon.
Well, I've had it with these motherfucking zombies on this motherfucking train.
Oh boy, how
been
long
waiting
you
for
been
that
working on
joke.
that one?
I've had that. It's been coming a long way.
You've had that since I said Train to Busan. It's a Korean
You've had
zombie
that
movie.
joke.
Last
We've
episode.
been on this train the whole time. You've had that joke ready since Seoul.
I've had that ready. It's been contraband in the luggage. I watched Snakes in the Plane.
Snakes on a plane.
Snakes on a Plane. Snakes in the plane. That'll be the sequel.
Snakes in the plane.
I saw that at midnight at the theater.
Me too.
Yeah.
In Monroe.
In Monroe. I was
We
probably
might have the same
were at
screening.
the same theater, but we weren't like buddies then.
I still haven't seen that shit, and I feel no remorse.
No, you're not
Don't
missing
bother.
anything. It was a meme. It was like
Yeah.
It's Meme the movie.
Yeah.
But it wasn't memey enough to deliver on being a meme movie. It had the one part where Samuel L. Jackson said, "I've had it with these motherfucking snakes on the motherfucking plane," which was like, like second unit pickup shot, like after, like it was a reshoot.
Yeah.
Oh, he
basically.
was on set for one day, I'm sure.
And it doesn't even. It's so shoehorned into the rest of the movie that it's not even satisfying when he finally says it.
Well, I mean, because it's a movie that became a meme after. Oh God, what am I even saying? But I mean,
It was a movie, and
They
then it was a
didn't-
meme, and then the movie was affected by the meme, and the meme
Correct.
was affected by the movie, and so on.
correct.
It was a trailer, I feel like, that became a meme. That
It was a
became a movie that
title.
became
It was a title.
a title.
And then the trailer became a meme too. But yeah, man, people were looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
movie like suddenly had to live up to the meme that it had become.
when you're like 18,
And I knew
19,
when I saw it, I knew it wouldn't. I was dragged there by friends.
one more thing about Train to Busan. Speaking of being dragged,
Wait, back on topic? Are you kidding me?
back on topic. The final sequence of the movie where they're in like the runaway locomotive trying to flee the train yard, and there's that huge chain of zombies like all clinged on to each other, being dragged behind the train. That was awesome.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
I was just thinking about how they did that from a practical
It
standpoint.
looked like a lot in this movie. It was like a mix of CGI and practical effects. Like, I couldn't tell the difference in that particular
Seemed
shot.
like all practical effects to me. I kind of assumed that there was some sort of like a sled of some sort that was sort of being dragged behind the train that some of them were sitting on.
I don't know. I think they actually dragged people behind a train. That's what it looked like to me.
Over train tracks and rocks
It looked
and shit.
amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're not well now. I mean, they had to pay out a lot.
300
after
people
this.
died making this movie.
All right, well, what are we watching next week, guys?
Next time we are watching The Boys in the Trees.
Are they cute, these boys?
I was
Well-
going to say, this is nothing new for Steven. Steven is always watching The Boys.
The boys
in the
in
trees.
the trees are always hard. You come talking the trash, they'll pull your car.
I don't get the reference.
I don't know
Boys
what
in
you're
the
doing
Hood, the
here.
song by Eazy-E.
Oh, okay.
It was Boys in the Trees.
Let's do that again.
Okay.
Yep, so that's what we're watching next time. Boys in the Trees. We're back to alphabetical.
I know nothing about
order.
it.
We're
I'm
in
excited.
The bees. Yeah, it's gonna be a little sad going back.
It's
to,
going to be a little sad.
going back to the Netflix normal catalog after watching this masterpiece from South Korea, Train to Busan.
I disagree. I'm really curious about Boys in the Trees. I've heard good things. It's
Me too.
apparently, I mean, we've been making jokes about gay themes and Steven watching Boys in the Trees, but apparently it's a
Oh, have we?
Well, the difference is
gay-themed-
Steve is usually in the trees watching boys. The boys are in the trees.
Yeah,
No,
it's
that was-
funny
that
that
was
it's
my
kind of a
joke.
subversion of the usual for me, yeah.
Sorry.
That's my joke.
Sorry.
No, it's been in my queue, actually. It was literally in my queue. I have queued it.
It is.
So,
it is
I don't
apparently actually a gay-themed horror movie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, I didn't know that. I just
Oh.
heard the Shockwaves mention it like a while back, and I was like, oh, I should see that. But it's been a year, so I've forgotten about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
I believe there are gay characters or gay themes from what I read in some
thank
reviews
God.
online.
Finally a movie I can jerk off to.
All right, great. Well, until then, check us out online if you want. We're everywhere. Leave us some iTunes reviews. We haven't gotten an iTunes review in like a year, so if
What,
you're listening,
seriously?
yeah. So pull your weight.
Wow.
It helps a lot, we're told.
That's what we're told. Review us or don't, whatever. It's your prerogative.
No,
We're not
do
asking-
it. Don't
we're not
give
asking
them
you-
the option to not do it.
We don't
Chris.
ask you for much. We're not asking you for money yet. We're just.
I mean, we do ask for like an hour to an hour and a half of your time every couple of weeks.
Sure.
But, what's a review?
All right. Well, until then, for every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Steven.
Have a great rest of your day.